everyone, it's Dee. Today we're going to be talking about some tips for crocheting amigurumi. There's some stuff on here that I wish I had known when I started crocheting or just making amigurumi in general. Okay, so the first one, yarn, you want to choose one that you feel comfortable with. I know chenille yarn is all the rage right now, but it is a bit harder to see when you're crocheting. It's harder to see your stitches. I wouldn't start with chenille yarn or fur yarn because that one's even harder to see your stitches with. Instead, I would recommend using a cotton blend, acrylic, or an acrylic blend. You probably want to stay in the worsted weight number 4 area. This is an acrylic worsted weight 4. It's on the label here. You'll want to check this. And this is about how thick it is. This is much easier to see your stitches, and you probably want to start with a lighter color. Darker colors are a little harder to see your stitches with. Number 2 is, before even choosing your favorite hooks, you will want to decide if you like tapered or inline hooks. Tapered hooks, think boy hooks. They have a rounded head with a narrow throat and it widens to the shaft, while inline hooks have a more flat angular head. Think like Susan Bates hooks, and the head is the same width as the shaft. I would recommend getting one of each and crocheting a little bit, seeing which you like better. These are often at thrift stores, or sometimes a family member has a few that forgotten crochet hooks and maybe they can let you borrow them for a little bit. For me, I prefer the tapered hooks, but there are plenty of crocheters that crochet with inline hooks. Number 3. Choose your hook. It's important that your hook feels comfortable. The ones I used are called Tulip Edimo Red hooks. These hooks are shorter in size and they have a cushion grip. It makes it easier because I have smaller hands. I think metal hooks are better for amigurumi. The most popular ergonomic metal hooks are Clover Amore. There are other options, but I believe this is the most popular. I don't know the name of most of the other hooks, most of the other brands of hooks, but there are different ones. And you'll want to decide which is your favorite, especially for something like this, because crocheting an amigurumi could take 30 minutes to hours to days. And it'll help you possibly an ergonomic hook, because if you're doing this a long time, it could cause like wrist pain, hand pain. Number 4 is, you probably want to get to know what a magic ring is. A lot of patterns use magic ring. This is considered the hardest part of crocheting an amigurumi. I know that some people are going to disagree with me, but I'm going to mention some alternatives here. One of the alternatives is there's the chain 2 method. So you chain 2 and then you crochet however many stitches the pattern calls for into the first chain. The second method is making chains, joining the first chain with the last, and crocheting into the ring you just created. A lot of vintage patterns use this method, and I honestly believe that this is more inclusive. Number 5 is figure out what your tension is. Your crochet tension can be tight or loose. Tighter crochet stitches are a bit more rigid, while looser crochet stitches are more fluid and derpy. My tension runs tighter, so making an amigurumi is a bit easier for me than, say, making a wearable. If I want to make a wearable, I should probably go up a hook size or 2, because my tension runs tighter. Number 6 is decide if you prefer to yarn over or yarn under. Yarning over creates a V shape, while yarning under creates an X shape. Since my tension runs on the tighter end, I yarn over, but there's plenty of people who yarn under and they prefer this. I don't think that one looks better than the other, but there are plenty of people who prefer yarning under because it creates a shorter amigurumi, and the stitches looks different because it's an egg shape, and some people like that. Number 7 is the recommended hook size on the yarn label is just that, a recommendation. This will differ when making amigurumi. Generally, you will go down a hook size or 2 if you're making a plushie. The recommended hook size, I think, usually is for making garments. I still think tension plays a huge role. This is also on the label here. Like, this one recommends a 5.5. For me, because my tension runs tight, if I wanted to make, let's say, a hat, I'd go up a hook size because of how my tension is. But to make an amigurumi, I would go down a hook size or 2. This will help so there's not so many gaps, so you can't see the stuffing, stuff like that. Number 8 is math does play a role in making amigurumi. And this is whether you're creating a pattern or you're freehanding or you're crocheting from the pattern. Amigurumi is crocheted in the round, and there will be rounds where you increase to create a higher stitch count or decrease to create a smaller stitch count. And number 9 is there are a few important materials needed to crochet amigurumi. These include stitch markers, fiber fill, tapestry needles, and safety eyes. The stitch marker will help keep track of the last stitch on the round, but you can also use a piece of embroidery floss or yarn that's a different color to help you keep track of your stitches. The fiber fill is used for stuffing the toy. Safety eyes will be for the plushie, but you can also embroider these. You can crochet and sew them on. Those are other options. The tapestry needle is used to weave in ends and sometimes for sewing. Number 10 is when you're crocheting an amigurumi, you will most likely need to sew. This will help connecting the parts together and the details of the finished product. There will be patterns that do not require sewing, but most likely there will be some sewing, whether it's in that pattern, a different pattern, and you still have to weave an end. So I think the tapestry needle is important here when you're making a toy. And especially if you're crocheting a pattern that has a lot of detail, there will most likely be some sewing somewhere in there.